Level 1. $0. Your alarm goes off at 6:15, out of habit, not necessity. Your feet find the cold kitchen tiles. You sit at the kitchen table before the sun is up, and the first thing your hand touches isn't coffee. It's the pill organizer, Monday through Sunday, deciding in advance what your body gets to have this week. The refrigerator hums behind you, mostly empty, a few things pushed to the front so it doesn't look as bare as it is. A carton of eggs, half a loaf of bread. The kind of arrangement you learned without ever meaning to learn it. You hear the mailbox latch click at 10:40. You wait until 11 to check it so it doesn't look like you were watching for it. Inside is the Social Security envelope, $1,540, spent before you open it. At the pharmacy counter, the pharmacist slides 2 bottles across instead of 3. You nod like this was the plan all along. It wasn't. It's what fit. You stand in the aisle a moment longer than you need to, reading the label twice, doing math you shouldn't have to do at your age, over medicine you've taken for a decade. Your daughter calls on Sunday. You tell her you're fine. You fold the past due notice so the red print faces down before she walks in, because some things a parent hides on instinct, even now. You watch her eyes move across the kitchen anyway, the way daughters' eyes do, cataloging what's missing, what's older than it should be, what you didn't mention. The hardest part was never the number. It was the quiet. 41 years of an alarm clock with somewhere to be, and now the alarm rings into an empty house for no one. The rule of level 1, $0 isn't a number. It's a silence that moves into a home built for noise and waits to see how long you can sit in it. Level 2, $10,000. It didn't come from saving. It came from your sister's estate, settled quietly, deposited without ceremony. You stare at the bank statement and feel something closer to a debt than a gift. You don't touch it. You call it the thing in the drawer, even though it lives in an account, because some part of you still treats it like it could vanish if you look away. Then the water heater fails in February. A $1,100 repair that doesn't become a choice between hot water and rent. It becomes a Tuesday. Just a Tuesday. You'd forgotten what an ordinary Tuesday felt like. You call the repair company and give them the go-ahead without calling anyone else first, without running the number past your own fear twice. You almost don't recognize the feeling of a problem that solves itself and stays solved. Your son calls that weekend, testing the water before the real question. Are you okay, Dad? You say yes. You don't mention the water heater, because saying it out loud would mean admitting how close it came to being a crisis instead of an errand. Some pride doesn't retire just because you did. The rule of level 2. $10,000 doesn't buy freedom. It buys one bad month, survived quietly without asking anyone for help. Level 3. $50,000. The house feels different, though nothing in it has changed. You sleep through the mailbox latch instead of listening for it. Your grocery receipt sits on the counter, and for the first time in years, you don't turn it over to check the total against what you expected. At the pharmacy counter, you ask for the name brand this time, not the generic. It costs $4 more. You don't flinch. The pharmacist recognizes you now, uses your first name, asks about your knee without checking a chart first. Small things. They land bigger than they should, the way small kindnesses always do once you've gone a long stretch without expecting them. Your Medicare Part B premium comes out automatically now. You barely register the deduction. It's not nothing. It's just no longer the whole month standing on one leg. At your checkup, your doctor mentions she's a decade out from retiring herself. She's 49. 10 years sounds far to her. You think about what you'd trade for 10 more years of choices instead of arithmetic. And you don't say it out loud, because there's no version of that sentence that doesn't sound like grief wearing small talk as a disguise. The rule of level 3. You've stopped surviving the month. You haven't started living past it. Most people your age are standing exactly here, quietly, whether they admit it at Thanksgiving or not. Level 4. $150,000. You sign the paperwork to stop working the 16 hours a week you never told your children about. Your hand doesn't shake. That surprises you more than the number does. You sell the house. 4 bedrooms for one person stopped making sense around bedroom 3. The new place has no stairs and a smaller bill. For once, you're the one making the decision, not the one having it made for you. Boxing up 40 years of a life takes longer than you expect. You find things you forgot you kept. You throw away less than you thought you would, and keep less than you thought you might. Your bank statement looks different now. Steadier. Fewer red numbers. You still check the grocery receipt out of habit, not need, and you catch yourself doing it, and something in you almost laughs. Your daughter asks gently if you'll be all right on your own. You tell her the truth. Carefully. She hears it the way you meant it, and neither of you has to pretend harder than that. She lingers at the door a little longer than usual before she leaves, the way people do when they've decided to believe you, even if some small part of them is still checking. The rule of level 4, the fear of running out, doesn't disappear. It just stretches out, from every single day to somewhere further down the road. Level 5, $350,000. A man named Richard starts calling from the bank, a retirement income specialist, which is a kinder way of saying his job is making sure your money outlives you. He asks about your health, your family, what you'd want to leave behind. Nobody has asked you that outside of a will in years. You find yourself telling him things you haven't said to your own children, not because he's owed them, but because he's the first person in a long time who asked without also needing something back from the answer. The pharmacy counter stops being a decision point. You take what's prescribed, full doses, no splitting, no math. The pill organizer still sits on the kitchen table. It's just not the first thing your hand reaches for anymore. You take the flight to see your brother instead of the 16-hour drive. You buy the seat with the extra leg room without doing the math twice. If any of this sounds like your own kitchen table, tell me where you see yourself on this list in the comments. You are not as alone in it as the quiet makes it feel. The rule of level 5. This is where the fear finally goes quiet enough that you can hear yourself think about something besides money. Level 6. $750,000. Richard calls twice a year now and remembers your grandson is applying to engineering programs without being told. That isn't friendship. That's an account finally worth the attention. You've stopped minding the difference. You've noticed, too, that you no longer flinch when his name comes up on your phone. Once, any call from the bank meant bad news. Now it just means Richard, checking in. The way a person checks in, not the way a debt collector does. You help your granddaughter with a down payment. Not the whole amount. Enough that her conversation with the loan officer goes differently than yours did decades ago in a bank that didn't know your name. She hugs you the way people hug you when the number is small to you and enormous to them. You remember standing on the other side of that exact hug once. You remember it precisely. Your old coworker, still working at 71 because he has to, mentions his knees have been bad since spring. You offer to help. He says no, too proud. You don't push. You just make sure the next time he mentions a bill, you already know the answer before he finishes the sentence. The rule of level 6. You stop measuring your life by what you can afford and start measuring it by who you can help without missing it yourself. Level 7. $1.5 million. Richard's office calls to schedule Richard now. The conversations use words like estate and trust and beneficiary, words that didn't exist in your vocabulary the morning you stood on cold kitchen tiles listening to a refrigerator hum. You take the whole family on the trip you always said you'd take someday. 12 people, 1 house, 1 week your granddaughter calls the best of her year. You let it be the best of yours too, and you don't mention what it cost. Someone asks, at dinner one night, what you were most afraid of, back when you had nothing. You have to think about it. It takes you a moment to remember the answer wasn't the number itself. It was what the number meant other people thought about you. If this kind of honest money story is worth more of your time, subscribe, because there's more of this ahead, and one of these levels is closer to your life than you think. You realize you've stopped listening for the mailbox latch. You had to think for a second to remember what time it clicks. The rule of level 7, the number that once ran your entire day becomes a detail you have to go looking for. Level 8, $5 million. You don't check the bank statement anymore. A quarterly summary arrives and you skim it the way you'd skim a weather report for a city you're not standing in. You've quietly funded a small scholarship for a kid who might one day sit at a kitchen table at 6:15 in the morning, reaching for a pill organizer instead of coffee. You remember exactly what that morning felt like. You wanted someone else's version of it to have a little more room. You didn't announce the scholarship. You didn't need anyone to know it came from you. The wanting to be seen for it left somewhere back around level 4, and you didn't notice it leaving until it was already gone, the way you don't notice a limp is gone until you're halfway down the street. Your family gathers for a holiday. Nobody at the table is doing quiet math behind their eyes about who's paying for what. That absence, the thing that isn't happening anymore, is the real measure of this level, not the number. The silence where worry used to sit, replaced by a different kind of silence. One that finally feels like rest. The rule of level 8. Money never erases who you were at 0. It just gives you the room to make sure fewer people have to stay there as long as you did. Somewhere right now, someone is sitting at a kitchen table at 6:15 in the morning, reaching for a pill organizer before coffee. Their refrigerator hums behind them. Their Social Security envelope sits unopened on the counter, already spent in their head before they've touched it. They don't know yet which level this story ends on for them. Almost nobody does, at the start. Nobody stands at 0 and knows for certain which way the next 10 years will bend. Money was never really the subject here. It was dignity. The fear of becoming a weight your children carry quietly. The kind of weight nobody names out loud at Thanksgiving, but everyone at the table can feel. The search for a reason to get up. Once the alarm clock no longer means anywhere to be, once the calendar stops asking anything of you, once the days stop having names and start having only numbers, you don't inherit that kind of peace. You build it, one ordinary Tuesday at a time, quietly, without an audience, long before you find out which number you were building it toward. And if you're still at the beginning of this story, at the kitchen table, at the pill organizer, at the mailbox waiting for 10:40, that isn't the end of anything. It's just the part nobody films, the part before the number changes, the part where the deciding actually happens.